Thanks for tuning in and welcome to Marketing Bites Restaurant Growth Unwrapped. I'm your host, Brian Siemienas, the Vice President of Restaurant Solutions for Nift. Today, I welcome our guest, Ryan Weaver, CEO at Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to our conversation today. So starting off, your background isn't in restaurant or hospitality. It's in investment banking and private equity before joining Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken in 2021. How did this experience prepare you for the jump into the restaurant industry?
Yeah, so like you said, I spent about 10 years in kind of the broader financial services space before I got involved with Lee's in the restaurant world. Most of that working for a big private equity firm, which is just buying and selling private companies. So I think how that translates, right, it gives you really good grounding in how to analyze financial statements, how to dissect a P&L, and ultimately understand what's going to drive EBITDA or cash flow and how does that impact your business valuation. So, you meet a lot of talented operators, leaders that maybe don't have that grounding and can't see the full picture for what it's going to mean for their business over time or seeking exit or things like that. So I think that's the big differentiator.
Okay, so talking about Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, the brand was founded in 1966 and you're approaching 150 locations. For those who have not been to a restaurant, can you describe the brand and experience for us?
Yeah, so start with a little history. The namesake in Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, he was a real guy. His name was Lee Cummings, and he was actually the nephew of Colonel Harlan Sanders, who, probably everybody knows who that is. So, it's very easy to, just based on that history, kind of see that we're linked at the hip a little bit to Kentucky Fried Chicken. The folklore, if you will, or the version of the story that, I've heard is that the Colonel, after he sold KFC in the early 60s, had a non-compete in the state of Kentucky, but wanted to get back into the business. So he kind of hooked up with his nephew Lee, and they started a new concept, which became Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken in Lima, Ohio in 1966. So it started as a concept called Harold's Take Home. There was another partner named Harold Omer. And then over the course of the next 20 years, they grew the Lee's business up to over 200 units and ultimately sold it to Shoney's in the 1980s, and it changed ownership a couple times thereafter. So, that's how you can think about us. We are traditional bone-in fried chicken. We do family meals, but we also have really good boneless products. We've got tenders, we've got sandwiches, we've got dippers, which is kind of a jumbo nugget. So that's who we are. It is home style cooking, home style sides. Most of our footprint is in the Midwestern United States, but then we've also got a handful of units in the Southeast and kind of Eastern Seaboard as well. So, I've been involved with the brand now for about 4 years, and we're kind of in the midst of modernizing everything from our brand image and appearance, which we've done across kind of our digital presence, and now we're bringing that into the physical assets as well.
So as you talk about those locations, you've got a combination of corporate and franchised. As you look forward, what are your current development plans, building out both sides of those, and what are some of the hot spots that you guys are going for the brand?
Yeah, so we really want to infill where we're at currently. So I mentioned we're predominantly in the Midwestern U.S., about 90% of the existing footprints across 6 states being Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Missouri, Indiana, Illinois. So there's still a ton of white space for us to infill there. We're in a lot of smaller towns, a lot of kind of more rural or fringe suburban areas. So, major metros like Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, Nashville, Tennessee, right? These are markets where we've got stuff around it and we've got some brand equity, but we're not in some of the most, densely populated areas. So that's a huge focus. And then trying to build off some of the kind of island stores, as we would call them, in the Southeast and the East. So, we've got 1 unit in Alabama, 3 in Florida, 1 in Virginia, 1 in the Carolinas. So a little bit of brand presence there, but adding some density would be, a good thing for the brand overall. So really focused on those areas. To your point, we're kind of entering a new phase of, franchise-driven growth. We had a chief development officer join the company Q4 of last year who, has a really good track record of scaling kind of emerging or re-emerging brands like ourselves. So it's going to be a mix of some new corporate units where we've already got, about a third of the system today, and then bringing on franchise partners that have multi-unit capabilities.
Okay, so you talked earlier about what you have on the menu, and was glancing through the website, and appears there's some flexing in the menu going on there. I saw some locations, pot pies, some gizzards, some livers. Not my cup of tea, but I know they're very popular. Some chicken sandwich, country fried steak. What is your guys' menu process? How much of it is core mandated, and what's that flexibility look like when a decision's made for some of those items?
Yeah, so we essentially have a library, if you will, of approved products, and the way that we've approached, helping new franchisees or new folks set up a menu is, as long as they stay within the four walls of what's approved, they can have flex to kind of build the menu how they think it's going to work in their local market. So, on one end of the spectrum, our franchise partner in Richmond, Virginia, has about as slim or truncated of a menu as you can run. He does famous bone-in chicken. He does famous strips and 5 sides. And he's all about throughput and volume, and he runs a great operation. But then on the other end of the spectrum, and again, some smaller towns that we're in where there's not a plethora of dining options, you might want to have kind of a more robust offering. So some of the things you'll see in our local favorite section, the livers and gizzards you mentioned, which again, they're not my favorite either, but we have a ton of people that will literally come to Lee's just for them, in Ohio in particular. So that's kind of been our approach. We've got approved products, but we're willing to be flexible depending on the location.
Okay, so you used the term earlier, bone-in chicken, and as I look at the chicken space in a very general, it's almost where the burger space was, I'd say back, 2010 and beyond. You had the burger, a lot of them in there. What do you guys consider competition? You've got everything from Hot Dave's to certainly Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, KFC, all the way through to, the tender craze of Raising Cane's and those kinds. Where do you guys view as, the competitors, and what do you see, being impacted in your markets from all the chicken categories?
Yeah, we kind of think of it as primary competitors and then secondary competitors. So for us, the primary benchmark set we'll look at is anybody that's kind of a national brand that does bone-in fried chicken. So that's KFC, obviously. It's Popeyes, it's Bojangles, and it's Church's. So that would be kind of our primary national comp set. But then again, we've got a tender product that we put up against anybody. So we do consider, the Dave's Hot Chickens, Raising Cane's, any of these kind of tender forward or tender only concepts as secondary competitors as well. Chick-fil-A is an interesting one. People always ask us about it. I really think they're a category or a comp set of one. They're in such a different league from an AUV perspective, and it's really tough they kind of compete against everybody. If you're in QSR, you're competing against Chick-fil-A at the end of the day.
Okay, so as we talk broader on the entire restaurant industry, certainly 2024 became a challenging year. There were those outliers that, have managed to figure it out, or, things were working for them. But most of the industry, people are trying to overcome some of the challenges. Tough year. Hoping 25 was going to be better. It appears a lot of those headwinds, plus, some more from a COGS perspective, and others are, continuing. What are you seeing in your markets and your restaurants, and how are you minimizing the impact of these? Because certainly as a leader, we, can't just say, well, nothing we can do. We got to overcome it.
Yeah. So 2024 for us was, it wasn't a best year from a comp sales perspective, but we were still positive. So to be up 1% in comp sales in 2024 on flat traffic, again, compared to that national benchmark set we would look at, where you can check KFC or Popeyes numbers publicly through those companies, and they struggled. So they both had negative comps for either the last 3 quarters of the year or the last 2. So, we felt really good about the +1 last year. We still had a record year as a brand from a system-wide sales perspective. So crossed 235 million in system sales last year, which was great. And then 2025, outside of some weather in January that impacted some of our footprint in the Midwest, we've seen really kind of green shoots, especially starting in March. So our comp sales so far in 2025 through 12 weeks were about +4%, and traffic's up about 1%. So, I attribute that to, just continuing to focus on operations. We believe we have the best product in our category, and we think we're, getting rewarded for that by the consumer. But we do have to be cognizant of what the competitors are doing, right? So value has been a big part of what our comps are doing, especially over the last year and a half. So we think we can bring a similar offering to the table. We're always pushing, a value-focused individual meal, especially in the first quarter of the year. But then ultimately for us, a family meal is kind of the always-on value offering that we have, and you really start looking at, an 8-piece family meal, a 12-piece family meal, and what does it mean on a per head cost. So we feel good about our positioning and continuing to see good performance so far in 2025.
Okay, so as we talk of franchising and the size you guys are, certainly customer experience and consistency are so important. And as you grow, it becomes more of a challenge. Especially with those franchisees. How do you and your team ensure your locations are executing to the brand standards and maintaining what the brand stands for versus going off on their own pages?
Yeah, look, I think that's the continuing challenge of being a franchisor that we all face. We're really happy with how we've grown our franchisor operations team. Our RFDs, or franchise business coaches, are responsible for about 30 franchise units. So, when they're making those visits and doing their inspections, it's not just meant to be here's a checklist and an audit, and we're trying to see what you guys are doing wrong, but it's a coaching interaction, it's a training interaction. We're trying to help these people, build their business, obviously, while making sure they're doing that within the confines of, the systems and the brand standards and procedures and whatnot. So I'd say it's a kind of evergreen battle that we're fighting to make sure that we're driving home good customer service. It's how you differentiate yourself in our space. Chick-fil-A does it the best. There's no, I think, lack of understanding about that, but there's no IP around great customer service and my pleasure and just trying to treat your people right every day. So we try and continue to drive that home at least too.
Okay. And, within your system on your franchisees, is it a combination, single unit owners, multi-units, or, do you tend to congregate one area or the other with your franchise system?
Yeah. So about, 100 of our units are franchised, rough numbers, and on average, franchisees own 2 units. So we do have some multi-unit folks that have as many as 12 units right now, but there's a lot of either 1 or 2 unit owners in our system as well. So there's always a bit of a challenge there too, right? You want to make sure that you've got systems and procedures that work for somebody in the multi-unit context, but you always have to make sure it also works for that single unit owner operator as well. So it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all playbook. We got to be able to work with both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, no, it's one, throughout my career at Hard Rock, we had everything from, number 1, 2 unit locations up to the Southeast Asia, single franchisee. And, at Darden, we tried to go multi-unit to build out the market. And, certainly you got to be prepared to support either. But, selfishly, I love the multi-unit because, I sort of would always joke, it's like kids. Getting that first one open is always so challenging. The second one gets a little bit easier. Once you get to 3, it starts becoming very easy and, a lot less effort to get it opened, and as well to have that market entry plan for building the brand.
Totally agree. Going from 1 to 2 is always the hardest part.
Yeah. So talking about marketing, what is the brand approach and how do you guys, handle marketing?
Yeah, pretty, I think, traditional setup. We have all units, corporate and franchise, contribute into a national ad fund, and then that is used to, administer national brand advertising. Like given our size, right, we're more of a regional player than a national player. We know that, we don't have the budgets to compete with KFC with 4,000 units and Popeyes with 3,000 domestic units. So we like to say we have to be scrappier with our ad dollars. So you're going to see most of that going into digital channels for us, connected TV. You're not going to see us, buying national TV spots or radio or a lot of that. So just trying to be really prescriptive about how and where we put those dollars to work, and still trying to be as effective as we can to tell our story.
Okay, so as you're sitting CEO, how do you look at what's working, what's not from a marketing perspective? Because certainly you've got to worry about the brand, brand building, but then also the butts in the seats. And, doing both at the same time can sometimes be a challenge. But what are the key KPIs that you look at for success?
Yeah, our agency partners that we work with, they have a metric that they call PPNOC, PPNOC, which is pre-post net of control. And I'm a big believer in that. So every time we're running a promotion, we're always looking at, call it a 6 to 8 week kind of pre-promo baseline to establish where the business is at. and then you compare that against what's the delta that you drive during the promotional period. So at the end of the day, we're focused on net sales and customer counts and seeing how we impacted those two things. So I just believe strongly that you have to ultimately tie ad spend and promotions back to the actual sales and traffic impact. There's a lot of ways to look at, ROAS and some of these marketing KPIs that kind of miss the ultimate goal, which is, are we impacting sales activity at the end of the day?
Okay, another hot area, and we were just recently at conference together in Myrtle Beach, is on the technology front. I always view it as it's a double-edged sword. It can make life so much easier, but also add so much complexity. How do your restaurants maximize the use of technology while, also what is your review process, given the cost impacts it has on a P&L in a franchise type of system?
Yeah, and look, we've been on kind of a technology transformation since I got involved with the company. So some stuff I view in kind of the mission critical or must have bucket, right? You've got to have a point of sale system that works. Nowadays, you have to be involved with online ordering and have the right partner to power both first party and third party delivery and just direct ordering through that. And I think you have to have a good back of house software that helps you with labor scheduling and forecasting, inventory counts, and then an ideal food cost program. So I view those as like must have mission criticals, and there's clearly and obviously ROI associated with each of those, but even if there wasn't, we'd still need those things. And then you've got this whole other bucket of, kind of value added or newer technologies. And one that we're exploring and have live at about 32 stores right now is AI voice order taking in the drive-thru. So drive-thru is our primary sales channel. It's between 60 to 70% of sales mix at most of our restaurants. And we have a really good partner that we've worked with for several years at this point. And they've got kind of, in my opinion, a best-in-class product, which just handles that order taking process for us at the drive-thru consistently with very high accuracy metrics. And we're getting an upsell every single time, which is where that's the one thing you can't control with the human element, right? You might get an upsell 20% of the time with a human in the drive-thru. With High Auto, our voice order taking partner, we're getting it 100% of the time. So, when we looked at that technology, we were looking at two things. Are there labor hours that we can take out of the restaurant since we're going to be increasing efficiency and somebody doesn't have to sit there and be at a screen punching in the order? And then what is that sales lift that we think we can attribute to that consistent upsell? So, we try and look at everything through an ROI lens. What do we believe it's going to drive? Can we actually prove it out? Again, this is an example of one where the technology pays for itself with the labor hours we were able to take out of our budget every week. And then, the sales lifts, which we think is about 1% to 2%, is just kind of gravy on top of that.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, that's unbelievable. I remember in the fall, there was one of the conferences talking about that. And I think they came back and said it was about 88%, accurate, which a couple of people, gasped a little. And I said, yeah, but the human's about 82%. So, it's like anything, but that's incredible, the upsell percentage, because I've always been in casual dining, it's, hey, don't forget to ask about an appetizer, ask about a drink. And, we know as operators that it's happening probably a fraction of the time, but I mean, to 100% ensure, the impact that, as you said, on your business is incredible with that upsell.
And to your point on the accuracy metrics, right, that should only get better from here as more players enter the space and all of these language models that drive all of the AI technology get better and better. So we're seeing kind of low to mid 90s accuracy rates, and we're handling about 94 to 95% of all orders right now. So we're super happy with that. And again, I think it's probably only going to get tighter and better from here.
Fantastic. So mentioned earlier at the Restaurant Franchise and Innovation Summit, you shared a case study on stage, your use of WorkStream. Was really interesting, the great results and impacts. Can you share, what you're doing with it and the impact it's had on your business?
Yeah, we had a big need, which is we didn't have any sort of corporate career website, and it was something that we knew there was franchisee demand for. We got questions about it all the time, and as we started to acquire corporate stores over the last 4 years and go from 0 corporate stores to 33, we needed kind of a tech-enabled way to hire. So the first thing they did for us is they built a very professional, well-functioning corporate career site, and they got that stood up for us in about 6 weeks. So they delivered on a timeline that I thought was aggressive and I had some doubts about. And then we use their platform to actually manage the entire hiring process for all of our corporate stores, kind of soup to nuts. So we were able to get rid of paper applications in our restaurants, which is what we were doing before, if you can believe it. So people can now apply online, QR codes. There's a text to apply program. They can do it through the corporate website where both us and franchisees can kind of seamlessly post job openings and positions, which is great. And we've seen our applicants explode, and as a result, our hiring has been much more efficient as well. So to me, it was just we needed to modernize that whole function for ourselves and for our brand and our system, and I think they were the right partner to do it for us.
So if we were to look 5 years ahead from now, able to snap our fingers and be there, what do you think Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken would look like?
Well, my chief development officer would tell you 500 plus units opening in the pipeline. And I think we can deliver on that. So even if we just stay within kind of our core geographies, there's, white space in our mind to add up to another 700 units, and not really get outside of our comfort zone or our geographical box, if you will. So look, we believe we've got the product to compete with anybody in our peer set. We think it's best in class, and it's just about building brand awareness and trying to get more boxes open and get that food in front of customers.
Okay. So we're to the favorite part of my episode with all the unique personalities in the restaurant space, get into some personal questions and get to know you better, Ryan, as an individual versus, the brand you work for. So first one is, if you could go back and give yourself advice when you started your journey, what would it be?
I think always try and put yourself in uncomfortable positions and, just try new things, meet new people. Ultimately, I think that's what leads to growth. And I think I still got put in a lot of uncomfortable situations throughout my career, but some of that just happened versus me maybe seeking that out. So that's what I would tell myself, day one on the job, going back to them.
When you were in elementary school, what did you want to do when you grew up?
I think I probably would have said be a basketball player. The problem there was I just wasn't very good at basketball, but I grew up outside of Orlando, so I was a huge Orlando Magic fan, still am. That was kind of the only professional hometown team we had. Watched Shaq growing up. He was my favorite Magic player. So that's probably what, third or fourth grade Ryan would have told you.
Okay, what's your favorite activity when not working?
I would say traveling. Love to ski. My wife is a huge skier, and she got me into that. So pretty much anything you can be in the mountains and do. So skiing if it's cold, hiking if it's warmer weather. But yeah, traveling, skiing, hiking are probably the big three, I would say.
Okay, so you grew up in Orlando. I'm here now. I grew up in Chicago, so had what I thought was skiing until I went to Colorado and Utah. What's your favorite ski location?
Probably Telluride would be mine. My wife would tell you Jackson is hers. She's much better at skiing than me, so Jackson's a really tough mountain. So she kind of forced me to learn on that one, but Telluride is my answer in Colorado.
Okay. Yeah. No, Vail was, but then I would say as I become looking at a whole, definitely Park City. I love the fact you can fly in Salt Lake City, nice direct flight from Orlando. And thanks to the Olympics, I mean, you literally can be on the slope within an hour of landing because of how convenient it is.
You can't beat it from a convenience perspective. It's for sure the best for that.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, the back bowls at Vail, I'll put up there, but weighing the whole package, getting to Vail is a very tough place to get to, and all those places in Colorado, and God help you if you don't fly in direct and you have a snowstorm going through that tunnel out of Denver, you're going to be there for days.
Yeah, that drive is pretty treacherous. We've done that one too many times, so I'm with you.
Okay, if you could use one word to describe yourself, what is it and why?
I'd say cerebral, and I say that because I'm naturally an introvert and I'm kind of a listener first. Is just my instinct and kind of my disposition. So yeah, we'll go with cerebral for that.
Favorite band or artist?
So I grew up playing piano, so I'm always inclined to answer this question that Billy Joel and Elton John are two of my absolute favorite artists, just because I love playing their music growing up and still do. So those are two. I also love country. Luke Combs is probably one of my favorite country singers right now.
Okay, were you, and you may have been a little too young, were you able to see them when they toured together?
Not together, but saw them both separately at different times.
Okay. Yeah. I was supposed to see them together in London, Wembley Stadium, old Wembley.
Oh wow.
And as I was walking up with my sister-in-law, who's also Billy Joel's, both of our favorite artists, unfortunately, that was when Billy had his challenges and a little bit too much on the bottle, as he shared,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he ended up having to cancel. So it was one that as we're walking off the tube stop, and they're making the
Oh no.
announcement, Sir Elton John will be performing on his own. If you want a refund, I have no idea where I even got the tickets. I think my great aunt got it. So I had not seen Elton John before in concert. I'd seen Billy many times and
Yep.
became a huge fan. I mean, the concert was great, and I've been fortunate, see Billy at the Garden and other places. But
Yeah, I got to see him once at the Garden when I was in New York, then once in Charlotte, and then I saw Elton John when he came through Brooklyn actually while I was up there. So
okay, so both of us Gators, beloved. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll be able to make it and win it this year. But let's do some rapid fire Florida questions.
let's
What's
do
the
it.
best football memory you saw in person?
So I got really lucky. I'm the same age as Tim Tebow, so I got to basically follow his football career when I was at UF. So the 2008 season, which was the second of the two football titles that he was a part of. I think it was the game after they had lost to Ole Miss, so it was LSU at home. It was a night game, and it was opening drive. I think they might have run, two run plays up the gut, and then third play of the game, Tebow, does a little Tebow play action and just throws a bomb to Percy Harvin, he's 15 yards open way down the field. Tebow underthrew him by a lot, but the safety misplays it, tips the ball, Percy catches it, and walks in for a touchdown. And loudest stadium, sports moment I've ever been a part of. I thought the swamp was going to collapse. So that was really cool. And then, we ended up blowing out LSU that game. That's the game that, Brandon Spikes has the pick six and then punts the ball into the stands. So it was just fun. It was fun to be there for that as a student, especially.
Yeah, definitely the years to be there. I feel sorry for those who have been there, since probably 2010 that have no memory of, a winning season. I was fortunate.
Yeah,
I was there.
I was there
during this. I was there during the Spurrier year. So, my three kids all went there. I think I saw less losses in all 5 football seasons I was there than my kids saw in one season.
Yeah.
But
sad but true.
I'd like to hope we're going back, but again, the scheduling gods certainly have not been kind to us. So we'll see.
All faith in DJ Lagway. We'll see.
That's for sure. What's your favorite sport to attend that is not football or basketball?
I'd say baseball probably. And we didn't have, when I was a student there, the new stadium wasn't built yet, so it used to be, just literally a couple hundred feet from the dorm I lived at my freshman year. So we'll go baseball for that one.
Okay. Have you attended any football road games?
Yeah, we would do one big road trip a year. So we went to LSU twice, and then we went to Tennessee twice. So I mean, LSU, that was really a New Orleans trip, more so than Baton Rouge. But I guess I really do think Knoxville is a cool town, and I would never say this to a Tennessee fan, but I think it's a really cool town. I think how their stadium is kind of, built into the side of a hill almost, and just being right on the river there, it's pretty unique. So I hate the school, but I think Knoxville is actually a pretty cool town.
Yeah, so agree with you on LSU. That was always our guys' road trip the past couple of years, and we finally gave up after 3 losses because that drive back from Baton Rouge to New Orleans after losing just sucks. And I will say the LSU fans were great. We tailgated with them. I mean, really good fans. I have to be honest, I have not been to Tennessee since probably 97. I went twice, and it was the worst place on the planet. They were horrible human beings. And to the point of didn't feel safe. I mean, I'm used to good ribbons and, rivalries, but just were horrible people. So maybe it's changed based on your experience, but so bad I haven't been back in almost 20 years.
Well, I guess by the time I was there, they really, you probably saw them right at the end of them being relevant and good with Peyton there maybe. So they were pretty beat up as a fan base by the time I was going through there. So they probably mellowed out a little bit.
Hey, what's your favorite Gainesville restaurant?
I don't even know if it's still there, but the Top, which was always a local staple. So Top's great, and then Ember's Steakhouse wise is can't beat it in Gainesville even still, I think.
Okay. And what about favorite bar? Those changed, so it's probably not there because I know half the ones when I went to are demolished and
Yeah.
gone.
So we were at the Swamp was always a big one. Now that's still there. It's just move locations. But then Balls, which again, as far as I know, is still there. It's been like one of the holdouts that just, you know, they're probably never going to sell or I don't know, but certainly not the nicest place at all. But yep, Friday night 6 to 8. Find me at Balls, hanging out the window, talking to people on the street, probably.
Okay. Was Purple Porpoise there when you got there? Or was it already gone?
It was not. I know of that, but it wasn't around when I was there.
Yeah. I'm really dating myself. They used to allow you to, insane. I don't know why they did it. You could leave the football game and come back. So, I mean, the bars on University would be packed at halftime. You know,
Yep.
Back then we didn't have, now we're probably about 80% night games. Back then it was all day games. It's just a matter of, are you going to be completely fried with the noon kickoff because it was Jefferson Pilot, or, you know, maybe you'd luck out and get the 3:30 game, which still would be boiling. And,
Yep.
you know, hey, what better thing to do than to go have a bunch of shots at halftime and try to make it back. But
I love it.
Yeah, now they just serve the beer straight in the stadium, and people, you know, it's a lot easier and less convenient, you know, or more convenient. So you talked about travel. What's your, outside of skiing, what's your favorite city or country to visit?
So got to go to Italy for honeymoon last year, which was incredible. Had never been there before. Bounced around and saw a bunch of different places: Rome and Venice and Florence, and even up into the mountains a little bit. So I'd say Italy, and then just Tuscany is a broad area, which is just wine country, kind of between Siena and Florence there. So just a beautiful area. We caught it when there was perfect weather, and it's just peaceful and quiet. You get to eat great food, drink great wine. So hard to beat that.
What are you most proud of in your professional career?
I think I would say just investing in people that work for me and work with me, and trying to be a good mentor and actually help develop them versus and I'm thinking more about my past life in big finance world, but big finance and big PE, it's very much a churn and burn type model. You work a ton of hours, it's brutal, but if you have a good head on your shoulders, once you start to move up the ladder a little bit and you have people working for you, it's really rewarding to be able to try and mentor, pass on knowledge, kind of teach them the way that you think things should be done and how you should deal with people versus maybe even what you've seen from more senior partners and folks at the firm and things like that. So trying to be a good mentor, trying to always pay it forward, trying to develop people and just teach them to be good people in the context of whatever professional career they're into, right? You don't have to be a jerk to get ahead in business and in life. You can do things the way you want to do them.
And what's something most people don't know about you?
Well, I would have said the piano thing, but since I already said that, I got my undergraduate degree in geomatics, and I think there was about 8 or maybe 9 kids in that program when I graduated at UF. So geomatics was the study of measuring the earth. So I learned how to land survey and map and do some interesting things with GIS. But that was my undergraduate degree right before I did a hard 180 and went and got a finance degree after that.
So I was going to say, so was it there weren't any opportunities? I mean, that's interesting to be able to survey, or you realize I don't want to do this, so what do I do next? Or did you want, like me, the extra football season, so you got your master's and just say?
I mean, that was a perk that didn't hurt. By about my junior year, I was pretty sure I wanted to switch into finance, and when met with a counselor, and they were just like, "Listen, man, you should just finish this degree and go to grad school somewhere." So that's what I ended up doing. It didn't make sense. I'd have to go back and do too many other gen ed courses. So yeah, definitely not the linear straight line. Knew what I was going to do from day one type of thing. Which, I think a lot of people have maybe not the most linear path like that.
Yeah, no, I tell my kids, stay in school as long as you can, because at the time, the studying and certain aspects sucked, but there were a lot of aspects that I certainly miss, even, I hate to say, 35 years later, for sure.
Absolutely. Got to enjoy it while you can.
Exactly. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this episode. Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you, Brian.
Yep. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And here's to celebrating the industry we love and serve. Until next time, stay hungry for success.